Good morning, and thank you all for joining us today. It seems like we're having some live stream difficulties, but we're back on and live. My name is Linda Corchado, and I serve as a Senior Director of Immigration here at Children at Risk. Today's press call brings together voices from across Texas to respond to a deeply troubling development. The U.S. Department of Justice's lawsuit challenging the Texas DREAM Act, a 24-year-old law that has opened up the doors of higher education to thousands of Texas students. This is more than a legal challenge. This is an attempt to dismantle one of Texas's most effective and visionary education policies, one that has not only advanced opportunity for immigrant youth, but has fueled our state's economic engine. As of today, an estimated 20,000 students enrolled in Texas higher education institutions qualify for in-state tuition under the DREAM Act. These are Texas high school graduates who have lived here for at least 3 years, earned their diplomas or GEDs here, and pledged to pursue legal residency. The numbers tell a powerful story. In 21 alone, DREAM Act students contributed over $81 million in tuition and fees. Repealing the law could cost Texas $461 million each year in lost economic activity, including $244 million in lost wages, over $261 million in reduced consumer spending. These students aren't asking for handouts. They're investing in their futures and in Texas. This policy has survived relentless attacks before. 9 repeal bills were introduced during the 89th Texas legislature, and not one passed. In fact, 97% of Texans who submitted public comment on this issue opposed repeal. That's not just policy support, that's public consensus. And yet, just days after the legislature upheld the law, the Attorney General has chosen to side with the Department of Justice and ignore the will of our people and the needs of our workforce. Today, you will hear from leaders across the business, education, and immigrant advocacy communities who understand what's at stake. These are voices of pragmatism, economic foresight, and moral clarity. First, we'll hear from Chelsea Kramer, Texas state organizer with the American Immigration Council and director of the Foundation and Regional Engagement Advisory for the Texas Association of Business. Chelsea will speak to the business community's steadfast support of tuition equity and the economic consequences of repealing the DREAM Act. Next, we'll hear from Ali Pacheco, a former Texas Dreamer whose journey puts a face to the students impacted by this policy and whose story reminds us of why this fight matters. We're also honored to be joined by Viridiana Tuley Guarizales, co-founder and CEO of InSchools. Her insights into what students are experiencing today are a powerful testament to immigrant resilience and courage. Finally, we'll hear from Chris Wallace, President and CEO of the North Texas Commission, who brings a critical economic and workforce perspective from one of the state's largest business regions. This is a moment for children that calls for unity, vision, and truth, and it starts right here. Thank you all for joining us and being with us today. I'm going to make these brief comments in Spanish, and then we'll start. Buenos días y gracias a todos por acompañarnos hoy. Mi nombre es Linda Corchado y soy la directora de inmigración aquí en Children at Risk. Nos reunimos en un momento crítico para responder a la demanda presentada por el Departamento de Justicia contra la ley DREAM Act de Texas, una ley que desde el 2001 ha permitido que miles de estudiantes acceden a la educación superior. Actualmente, más de 20,000 estudiantes se benefician de esta ley. Son jóvenes que crecieron aquí, se graduaron de preparatorias tejanas y que contribuyen activamente a nuestro estado. Solo en el 2021, estos estudiantes aportaron más de $81 millones en colegiaturas a nuestras universidades públicas. Derogar esta ley significa perder $461 millones el año en actividad económica para Texas. Durante la última sesión legislativa, se introdujeron 9 proyectos de ley para eliminar esta ley y ninguna fue aprobada. El 97% de los comentarios públicos se opusieron a su derogación, pero ahora el fiscal general de Texas se ha alineado con el gobierno federal para eliminar una política respaldada por empresarios, educadores y líderes comunitarios de todo este estado. Hoy escuchamos a estas voces. Now we'll begin. Chelsea Kramer, thanks for joining us. And like I mentioned in my opening remarks, a whopping 9 bills were introduced in the Tidy 9 session to repeal the DREAM Act. This during one of the most conservative sessions in recent memory. Chelsea, who came out to support the DREAM Act? And what are some of the biggest misconceptions you heard about it as the issue was hotly debated in the state capitol this year?
Thank you, Linda. Yes, with 9 bills, which is an incredible amount of work for the business community and faith and leaders from across the state to come together to fight. But all those 9 bills, they didn't pass during the legislative session because these business leaders from Houston to Dallas, from El Paso to Midland to Longview, just across the entire state, came together with other community leaders, with faith leaders, with students, with educators, to make sure that their voices were heard at the state capitol, to make sure that our policymakers actually understood what the intent of the Texas DREAM Act was way back in 2001 when Governor Perry signed it. And we had a lot of really great conversations with leaders, with many of them coming to realize how important the Texas DREAM Act has been, not only for our communities, but also for our workforce and for our economic future. And so we were extremely excited that we were able to dispel some of these myths about who are these students and making sure that our policymakers understood they're incredibly hardworking students that have been admitted into these incredible public universities that we have across the state, that they are here to be a big part of this beautiful Texas dream that we have in the state. And many of them have been here since they were babies or toddlers. And so that they are Texans in every sense of the word, except for maybe on paper. And so we were extremely excited with how the ending of the session happened, with none of those bills moving forward. Because for more than 2 decades, the Texas DREAM Act has really stood as a model of pragmatic bipartisan policymaking. And since 2001, similar laws have been passed in 24 other states, really showing that what Texas did back in 2001 was something the nation wanted to follow, because Texas has always been and will continue, hopefully, to be a leader. The impact of the Texas DREAM Act is incredibly undeniable. These students, again, Texans in every meaningful way, have generated more than $28.5 billion in economic activity. And that's probably one of the big reasons that the business communities and chambers of commerce from across the state have always been such advocates for the Texas DREAM Act. And they've lauded it since the beginning because they know that these students want to give back. They want to start their own businesses. They want to be part of their local communities. And strong local communities create a strong and better Texas. But obviously, like you mentioned, that progress is in jeopardy with the acts that took place on June 4th with the Department of Justice and our Attorney General siding with them. Governor Abbott quickly declared victory, and the Attorney General called it a win. But we ask ourselves, what did Texas win on June 4th? Because it definitely certainly wasn't more sovereignty. It wasn't more economic growth, and it certainly wasn't a stronger future workforce. What Texas lost is much clearer. As you mentioned, an estimated $461 million a year in wages and spending power. That's what the Texas DREAM Act has been giving back to us since 2001. And more importantly, I think Texas has lost our claim to leadership. State officials with these actions didn't just walk away from a 20-year success story. They invited federal overreach and abandoned the Texas values in the process. And I think we should be very clear that there have been no issues with this law since 2001. We have had no instances of complaints from universities, from communities, from teachers. And like you said, 97% of the folks that went to the state capitol during the legislative session went there to tell legislators that this policy is something that is good for the state. And without a single vote, that was undone, and without a fight. And I think it's important to say that this wasn't a fight. What happened with the Department of Justice on the 4th, it was truly a surrender. And the message that it sent to not only our students and our families, but for all of the advocates and community and business leaders across the state, it said that your hard work doesn't matter and your dreams don't count. And I think that's a really sad statement for the state of Texas, but hopefully we can come together and potentially help our those at the highest level understand that this is of value, and potentially have a reconsideration of what happened on June 4th.
I mean, you mentioned fraud, waste, right? These are all top concerns from Americans across the state and the country. Also, abuse. I mentioned in my comments also about handouts. But the DREAM Act is none of this, and instead we have a track record of following the law and doing the right thing here. Chelsea, I was happy to witness the amazing work you did with organizing and getting folks to testify, issue public comment. What are next steps here for organizing in Texas? I'm asking you to be a fortune teller now.
Yes, I wish I had a crystal ball. I know right now a lot of our business and community advocates, they're feeling a lot of dread right now because they see a lot of loss because of this. They're worried that we're going to lose a lot of students to other states that have similar policies, or these students are going to choose not to fulfill their full potential and not go to higher education and reach their dreams and goals. And so, looking at a crystal ball, what happens next? On The clock starts ticking on June 4th. We have, I believe, 28 days from June 4th to see if there are going to be any interveners and interventions. We hear a lot of rumblings about a lot of very unhappy folks, from directly impacted students and impacted communities. And so I think in the coming days, we'll see some interveners come in and try to make the case that this is going to do a lot of harm. And like we just heard, it will have economic and workforce consequences for the state of Texas.
Thank you, Chelsea. And next, we're honored to have Ari Pacheco, a former Texas Dreamer who benefited from in-state tuition before. Ari, from Texas A&M to Harvard, where you are now, how did the DREAM Act propel your college success?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I actually graduated from Harvard 2 years ago. I still remain to be undocumented, and I think my biggest concern beyond the economic aspect is that families shouldn't lose hope in education. Uh, I believe like beyond what the law is saying or it's uncertain right now, it's important that families still believe they can still go to college. They can still look for states that are supportive. Right now, I'm residing in Massachusetts, and states like Massachusetts and other states can also have policies that are supportive for undocumented students. And I benefited from the in-state tuition in Texas. Actually, Viridiana and her organization, I'm still undocumented. And then when I was undocumented in high school, I didn't know that I could go to college. I didn't know that I had this right. It was Viri who told me that I had this right to go to college and pay the same tuition as citizens do. So I was able to go to Texas A&M for my undergraduate degree. And I think like higher education doesn't stop like right there, like in at the college level. Like you can still like families, parents should know there are things like master's and doctorate programs, and they can pursue them where law it's protective of them in beyond Texas, if Texas is not a safe space right now. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm thankful. I'm thankful for being benefited from my undergraduate experience in Texas, but Texas is not the only state for undocumented people. Like we are everywhere, and I'm not the only case. Uh, Parents and families can hope and can dream across the United States.
Gracias, Adri. ¿Y podrías compartir lo que acabas de decir en español, por favor, un resumen?
Bueno, mi nombre es Ariadne, Ari Pacheco, y yo todavía soy estudiante, soy indocumentada. pude ir a la universidad gracias a Dios y gracias a personas como Viri y su organización que me ayudaron a saber que nosotros tenemos derechos y aunque la legislatura ahorita en Texas no es la mejor, es algo muy incierto, quiero que sepan todas las familias que el ser indocumentado no define el poder soñar a tener un título universitario y podemos buscar en otros estados más accesibles, más inclusivos para familias, para personas como nosotros y podemos aspirar a grande, seguir la universidad, un posgrado e incluso fuera de Texas. Y sí, sigan soñando.
Gracias, Ari. Y te felicitamos por todo el éxito que has tenido durante tu carrera. Y que sigas subiendo más y más. Aquí estamos en Texas apoyándote. Next, I have the joy of having Viridiana Tuli Carrizales at IMSchools joining us today. Viri, I know this is a difficult time for so many students across the state who aspire to obtain a college education. I'm thinking about, a high school junior who's just been doing everything the right way, our high school seniors who just graduated. What are you hearing from students now as they process this really difficult news?
Thank you, Linda, and hello, everyone. I have spent countless hours speaking with families over the last couple of days who are trying to understand what this decision means for their students and means for them as families who have been in the state for many years. I spoke to students who have graduated high school. Many of them graduated as a valedictorian of their class in the top 5%. They have been admitted to top universities in the state, and they're starting their year. They're planning to start their first year this fall, who are now questioning whether or not that is a possibility for them. And it is heartbreaking because the students have been in our schools since kindergarten, some of them, and have done everything right? Like they listened to their teachers, they did well in school, they graduated with top honors. Every achievement that they have earned seems to be threatened now by this elimination of the in-state tuition law. And I've also heard from students who have 1 year left to graduate from college, some as with chemical engineering degrees, nursing, education, and who are trying to figure out how do they finish their degrees. And I've heard some stories from students who say, okay, I'm going to have to get another job. I'm going to have to take one class at a time. They're refusing to let this take their dreams away because they know that they have a potential and they want to invest in this state that have seen them grown up since they were little kids. I myself also benefited from in-state tuition. I went to UT Austin, and then I was able, when I adjusted my status, I was able to start a nonprofit organization and hired now other Texans to work for IMSchools and encourage other students like Ari to continue to work, because it doesn't matter where you are in Texas. We all know that education benefits us all. Every time we have folks in our community educated, we all win. And right now, one of the biggest implications that this elimination of in-state tuition, the Texas Dream Act has, is that is now going to discourage a lot of our students who are juniors in high school, who are even in middle school, who are now wondering, what's the point of me going to school if there's nothing for me to look up to? So this is going to have an implication where students are going to potentially drop out of school, of K through 12 school. And again, it doesn't matter where we live in the state, it hurts us, all of us, the moment that students drop out of school. And I think that's something that is really important for everybody to understand. It just doesn't mean making it difficult for somebody to go to college. It will have deeper implications that, will be felt across the state.
Thank you so much, Viri. Would you mind sharing some of your statements in Spanish, please?
Gracias por tenerme aquí. Buenos días a todos. He tenido bastantes llamadas con familias, con estudiantes estos últimos días que están tratando de entender qué significa este cambio. En la ley hay muchos estudiantes que van a empezar su primer grado de universidad este otoño, que se han graduado como los primeros en su clase o en los primeros 5% de porcentaje de su clase, estudiantes que tienen mucho potencial y muchos sueños. He escuchado de ellos ahora tratando de entender qué significa si van a poder ir a la universidad en el otoño. También he escuchado de estudiantes que están en su tercer grado de universidad, que se van a graduar con, con posgrados o con licenciatura de ingeniería, que están tratando de ver cómo terminan su carrera. Y están planeando quizá tomar una clase, si ahora les va a costar más. La universidad están tratando de conseguirse otro trabajo, otra clase, pero no se están dando por vencidos. Y eso es algo que es importante, como dijo Ari, recordar de que el no tener papeles en este estado no nos define y nunca va a definir nuestros sueños. Quizá nos van a dar un poco más de obstáculos en el camino, pero nunca serán lo suficiente grande para detener nuestros sueños. Así que ese también es mi consejo para padres de familia. Quizá cambia nuestros planes, quizá nos va a tardar un poquito más de tiempo de terminar la universidad, pero hay mucha gente aquí en el estado que nos puede ayudar. Muchos gentes de negocios, quizá ojalá que se crean becas para ayudar a esos estudiantes a seguir con sus sueños, porque una de las consecuencias que esta ley puede tener es de que muchos estudiantes que ahorita están en la escuela de kinder al 12 grado, quizá están preguntándose por qué deberían de seguir estudiando si no tienen la oportunidad de ir a la universidad. Y eso quizá puede causar de que muchos estudiantes dejen de ir a la escuela. Y todos nosotros en este estado principalmente sabemos de que cuando los niños se salen de la escuela, todos nosotros perdemos, porque nosotros no podemos prosperar como estado, como comunidad, si no tenemos a una comunidad que esté educada. Entonces, ojalá que entre nosotros, con nuestro poder, con nuestras fuerzas que tenemos, sigamos impulsando y buscando una manera de seguir apoyando a nuestros estudiantes para que no paren de soñar.
Gracias, Miri. And our last speaker, we're thrilled to have with us today, Chris Wallace, President and CEO of the North Texas Commission. You know, we have Miri just kind of giving out the fears, expressing your concerns that many students now will think, what's in it for me, and may feel discouraged to continue their education, and may drop out, and may not feel like they're supported any longer by the state. But Chris, when you hear that, that means serious economic consequences. Share a little bit more about how you've been processing this news.
Yeah, you bet. No, Linda, thank you for having me. You know, it comes down to that we simply need the workers. This is a workforce pipeline issue. This is about a program to further prepare workers. Keep in mind that these are high school graduates. They have been here more than 3 years. They desire to seek more education to prepare themselves for jobs that they have today and jobs that they want in the future, jobs that we need them to take. So my opinion and our opinion here at the Commission is, what does it hurt to give them a discount on tuition? This was a program, as Chelsea rightfully said, that's 24 years old, brought to us and implemented by then Governor Perry. It's been very effective, very visionary. And like you said, Linda, it's been challenged for many, many years and has withstood those challenges. And so we hope that it will continue. We hope that common sense will prevail from an economic certainty standpoint, and certainly to keep our state more and more competitive.
Thank you, Chris. And that competitiveness, you know, we're looking at serious workforce shortages across the state. What are you hearing from employers now in the region?
You know, certainly the 20,000 students that you mentioned, there's some uncertainty there in terms of how that's going to impact the workforce. But this program and other immigration-related programs, DACA and others included, employers want this to be resolved. They want it to be resolved with a legislative fix. to where we can move on, basically, and make sure that we have those employees in the future who are very well prepared to take the jobs that they need them to take.
Thank you, Chris.
bet.
Much is at stake, right? I want to thank you all for joining us today. What we've heard is clear from all of our speakers. Repealing the Texas Dream Act would not only devastate our economy, but would betray the values that have long defined Texas: opportunity, hard work, and community. These students are Texans. They've grown up here, studied here, and they want to contribute here. We will continue to stand with them, defend their rights to education, and fight for a future where every young Texan has a chance to succeed. I want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you.